smaller drops than the average curve. So we're going to be looking at something that I would otherwise say is a pretty good matchup for Mage. He's got a really good curve, he's got a Snow Chugger, but Firebat's hand is also pretty amazing.
Both players here have
The nuts
top-notch
draw? Yeah.
top-notch card draws. I mean, Reynad could, in theory, hope for better with insane Mech Warper synergies, but I mean, getting a Scientist is always excellent against Druid.
So playing the Shade here, you know, it allows him to dictate when he wants to kill the Scientist, whereas if you play the Harvest Golem now, what you're doing is essentially letting your opponent trade his Scientist away, and then you're forced to give him something that he's going to be happy to play.
Yeah, I agree. This draw, though, from Reynad is so huge, because now he managed to play 2 minions instead of 1. He'll be able to freeze the face. And
ouch! This Blast Mage is going to tear through this board.
This leads so well into Blingtron. Do you send the Scientist into the Golem, then you Blast Mage, send the Clockwork Gnome into
the token that remains? Yeah, if it spawns, of course.
I mean, you freeze the face, you have Mirror Entity, you have a 5/4, and next turn you have Blingtron. This is so strong. As long as the Blast Mage hits right.
Yeah, this is an example of what we meant when we're speaking of the advantage that Mech Mage has in many circumstances. This is pretty much it. But the swipe that Firebat has is actually going to clear this board fully, no matter what happens here.
Kind of whiffed, though. This is huge.
Exactly. He had to wait to see where the Clockwork Gnome would have to go, and this is going to make the swipe that Firebat has a complete board clear. I mean, he could give a Loot Hoarder for Mirror Entity. The value Reynad's going to get out of it is fairly minimal compared to what he might have been expecting.
Yeah, I still think Reynad played it right because...
Of course he did, yes.
The Blast Mage whiffed, but it's not the end of the world. He basically hopes for Doomhammer next turn.
Reynad's weapon could actually be the game changer here, depending on what either players get.
If he gets Sword of Justice, then that really stinks.
He's gonna get a 4/5 out of it. Ooh, Loatheb. That's an interesting minion to play instead of Blingtron. I prefer that because you get a body before you drop the weapon. It's much stronger. If he'd gotten a really weak minion like Tinkertown Technician, this would have been a really awkward turn, but something like this will allow him to press the advantage that Blingtron can give.
Yeah, and I meant Light's Justice out of Blingtron would be the worst, but...
Okay, yeah, instead of Sword of Justice. Sorry, I must have misunderstood. Yeah. So we have a situation right now where Reynad is going to be able to get card draw off of the Loot Hoarder. So this might compensate for, you know, generally speaking, Mech Mage's weak spot is card draw. You have to be very efficient with your minions, and mechs tend to do that very well, especially when you can complement them with burst and spare parts. So let's see what weapons both players get. Light's Justice.
Oh,
and Doomhammer, you've got to be kidding me.
Did I jinx Reynad?
Oh my god.
Okay. I mean, this is not over. This is still 4 damage, so...
This is not over.
It's the worst.
You're right.
But
it's not over. It's far from over, actually. There's, like, look at the amount of damage Reynad has on board. Like, disregard the fact that Light's Justice is a complete whiff. That's 7 damage coming up right now to Firebat's face. That puts him on 12. And Doomhammer you can't use for removal, so you have to use it offensively, which you really can't afford.
Right, yeah. Reynad got the worst weapon possible, but
he's still winning.
It is still 4 damage, and Firebat, like you said, cannot afford to use his Doomhammer as removal, so sure it's going to be damage in Reynad's face and actually makes the combo pretty good on turn 9 because then Firebat could win the game, but Firebat has to get to turn 9, that's the problem.
And this Innervate, actually, you can hero power and get up to 3 attack with Doomhammer, for all that's worth. That or you Force of Nature to clear the board even more effectively. I don't know, I feel like all the plays that can be made here by Firebat are going to be so vulnerable to that Fireball.
Yeah. But does he have a choice, though?
No, he's dead. He's dead to Fireball, but he had to play around it. He had to play as though it wasn't there.
He can't let the loot hit more than once, but he doesn't want to kill it because then Reynad gets closer to Antonidas or another Fireball or, well...
That's a good game. Reynad just BM attacking the Druid of the Claw and using the Fireball on Firebat's face, so Fireball gets Fireball.